Hey everyone, welcome back to Land Investing Online, where we teach students how to profitably buy and sell vacant land. This is the simplest, least competitive, and most profitable sector of real estate. For more information, please visit landinvestingonline.com. Join our free Discord. There's a lot of different land investors in there. Great place to network. Come learn from the best. I'm Daniel Apke, again, joined by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. Welcome back, Ron.
Hey, Dan. Good to be here.
Before we go into this topic, which is choosing your first market to send mail to, let's go into one of our questions from a member. Can you talk about quiet title for someone who doesn't know anything about it? What is quiet title? I hear this term thrown around a lot. Can you briefly explain that?
So quiet title is essentially what needs to be done when, let's say, two people are on a deed and someone way back, two people want to sell land or want to sell a property and they think they have full rights to the land. When they do a title search or when an attorney or title company does a title search, they find someone else who never signed over their rights to the land. So what quiet title is, and it's different in different states, it's essentially the title company trying to locate that that other person who hasn't signed and trying to get them to sign if they want to. A lot of times it just ends up, I think they need to post in newspapers to try to find this person. They need to try to send mail to them to try to see if they have interest in the land. A lot of times no one responds. And what happens, it takes about 3 to 6 months and the two people that wanted to sell the land can just sign over the land. So once that quiet title is complete, those two people have full rights to the land. It's insurable by the title company, and they can sell the land. But it's about a 3 to 6 month process. It's not overly expensive, but it does take some time. And you also got to take into account maybe that other person does have interest in the land and they don't want to sell it. A lot of times these go really far back when the deeds weren't transferred correctly or they were quick claim deeds without a title company. So it's something, it's an advanced thing, I think, with land, Dan. I know last episode we talked a little about probate. So I think this is an advanced topic, definitely. And if you are getting into quiet title deals, make sure you kind of know the process, understand it, and ideally not your first deal.
Great points. And I don't know much about quiet title. Ron does the title work. He handles that team. So I'll just end it right there. That was a really good explanation. I learned a little bit there. Today's topic, choosing your first market. Before we go into this, let's just explain land investing. So what do we mean by choosing your first market to send mail to? So what we do, we select, the first step of the process is selecting a county, right? So you're going to find a county that you want to send mail to, maybe 5 to 20 acres in somewhere in Colorado, right? And you select that county based on methods that we teach. You send the mail out to all the landowners in that county. The landowners get the piece of mail that offers $20,000 for 7 of their acres. They call us back, they sell us their land, and that's how this process works. That's like land investing 101. That's what we teach, right? That's our business. So before we go into that part, the next part, then I want to just describe three different types of markets, right? So everyone thinks everything's so hot right now, and it is. The markets are very hot. We're in a hot market right now, but they're not everywhere in the U.S. is hot, right? There's slow markets. There's extremely hot markets like Tampa, Phoenix, Nashville, markets like that are just super, super hot. And then there's slow markets like middle of Arkansas. There's certain slow markets. We show how to identify slow markets versus hot markets in our business. But then there's kind of the middle ground, right? It's not hot. It's not slow. We're going to be able to sell it at the right price. And that's kind of what we recommend starting out, is finding those medium markets is what I'm going to call them in this episode. So they're not going to take 100 days to sell, but they're also not going to sell in one day. They're kind of that middle ground. What do you think about that, Ron?
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's funny because I live in a small city currently and I'm moving soon and I sold my house pretty quick. But everyone in every city thinks it. And it's all relative to the city. It's not relative to the country. So really think about what I'm saying there. A hot market is relative to the city, not to the country. Because these people I live in a small city in South Carolina right now. They think it's the hottest market anywhere. And I know for a fact it's not, because I talked to Daniel, who's in a very hot market in Tampa, or St. Pete. And I talk to people where I'm from in Ohio, bigger cities, where it's a hotter market as well. But these people in this small city I live in are not familiar with a market as hot as this. But it's all relative to 5 years ago. This is not a hot market in the country, but things will sell fast. But like Dan was saying, there are different types of markets, and you got to think. I think that's the first step, Dan, is kind of choosing what type of market, like how hot of a market do you want to be in? How close to a big city do you want to be in? Do you agree, like before even kind of looking into individual markets, like you got to think to yourself, do I want to be in a hot market where I'm competing with people where land's going to sell in whatever a day with multiple offers? And then think about the differences in each of those kind of offers.
Yeah, and I think that to identify which one you want to go into, a very hot market or a slow market or middle ground, you kind of have to know the pros and cons of each, right? So like Ron said, hot markets will sell very quickly, very, very quickly if they're priced correctly, but they're hard to acquire, right? You might have 3 offers in the first 24 hours of putting that on, but they're harder to acquire. Why? Because the market's so hot. Everyone knows the price of their land. Their neighbor's price sold for $10,000 over asking price or whatever that may be. Slow markets, they'll take longer to sell, but you'll be able to acquire it a lot easier. So you send out, maybe it's the middle of Arkansas, a very slow county. You send out 5,000 mailers. Maybe you get 10 back from there or something, 10 properties back under contract. The landowner's mind is this property's in the middle of nowhere. No one wants land around there. Sell it when I can type of mentality. And that's extreme. Like it's not always like that, obviously, but that's how it is in a nutshell. Hot markets, they know the price, their neighbor's price sold. Slow markets, they think it's less desirable. No one wants their land. There's a small market for it. So you kind of have to identify what do you want? Do you want to offer more, a higher percentage to get a land in a hot market and sell it real quick and get less properties? Or do you want to go in a slower market and get a lot more for a lot cheaper? It might take longer to sell. That's why at first, these hot markets are really good. Not at first, though. Once you get more experience and you can offer 60, 70%, you know the area you're negotiating. But that's why Ron and I strongly advise people to go in that middle ground. You don't want things sitting for 100 days. You want to turn your money quick. We strongly advise that at first.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was thinking when you were saying that, like, don't get too hot, don't get too, I guess, cold, or I guess warm nowadays is what everything is. But try to be in that middle ground to start. Once you get a rhythm going and once you kind of get mail flow, test out those hot markets. Because if you get deals, it's really quick money. You can turn it fast. You can learn how to price more aggressively in these markets, like Dan said, which we go over all that stuff, and it's really important to know how to price hot markets as well as kind of the medium ground. But medium is kind of where, and there's so much of it, Dan, especially now. There's very few. There are like cold areas, but there's very few of those that I think where like you just don't want to send mail. There's a good amount of really, really hot markets where you're going to not get as much land, but when you do get it, it's going to sell extremely quick. But most of our country, in my mind right now, is kind of those middle ground, just with how people want to move away from city life and kind of get some land out in the country a little bit farther from cities. I think a lot of our country is that right now. It's going in a really good direction for our business, I think, because there's so much desire for land outside of big cities, maybe an hour and a half outside of a big city where they can take a weekend trip to the big city, but they're still not living that busy city life. But I think that's a really good point. Like, try to find areas that are that middle ground market. Is that your main suggestion, Dan, as far as like getting someone? Because I think a lot of people have cold feet when choosing their first market, and I hear members talk about taking days and maybe even a week to choose a market, and they're just overthinking the process.
Yeah, it comes down. There's a lot more variables that go into it. I mean, we have another episode where we talk a lot about failed mailers and stuff, and everyone's fear is a failed, quote unquote, failed mailer. But yeah, I just think you find let's talk about how to identify these markets. Let's go into that a little bit. How do we identify markets, slow, hot, or medium in our course, right? So one of the main things we do is, and we teach this very in depth in our course, we have two videos on it. One is an advanced module where we talk literally, I think, for like 50 minutes, going into actual examples of counties. And we actually sent mail to the counties and got good deals back based on that selection process. But one thing we look at from a basic level, sold versus for sale comps, right? So like, what's the ratio of things for sale versus sold? Because if you have nothing for sale and a ton sold, so say you have 2 things for sale and 100 sold in the last few months, that's a sign it's very hot. Things are flying off the market. Nothing's staying on the market. And then you can go into those sold comps and look how long they were in the market. So that goes to the average time on market for these well-listed properties. Those are kind of the two ways we look at it. And there's a lot more that we show in the course, but that's kind of the basic level. Would you agree with that, Ron?
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, we have we probably have an hour, 45 minutes of content just on choosing a market, which might be overkill, but I know a lot of people do things differently. We have analytical people who really want to look at data and all that. We have some people who want to do it more by like eyeballing and just kind of feel. And I think both of those ways can be successful for sure. So that's what we kind of do overkill, and we get so many questions on choosing a market. But no, I 100% agree. Using days on market. I don't like using days on market as a whole, really, as much as I get more advanced and as I teach some people. I really like going into like kind properties and seeing how long they were on the market. So if I'm trying to, I don't know, Daniel keeps saying Colorado, so I'll just say Colorado. If I'm trying to choose a county, whatever, a couple hours outside of Denver, I'm going to go into those counties. I'm going to look at, let's just say 5-acre properties. And I'm going to look for 5-acre properties. I'm going to look when they were listed for sale on Zillow and then when they went pending. And that days on market is very important. And that doesn't always necessarily mean it's an overly hot county if that's low. Like it might be an improving county. But like Daniel said, like we teach all that in the course as far as how to really choose those correctly. And at the end of the day, guys, I think the best county chooser is experience. Like I think you can just do this all day and all night and try to choose the place to mail and to acquire land. But at the end of the day, like sending that mail and testing what you did and knowing what you did for the next time is the most important thing. Like that experience is so valuable. It's way more valuable than anything I can tell you guys as far as choosing a market, because you're going to make changes and it's so individualized based on how you price, whether a county is going to be successful or not. So really try it out. Try your own things after, do our way a couple of times and then try your own way and see how that goes, or adjust a little bit. Try our way, adjust based on what worked, what didn't work, and go from there.
Yeah, great information. And then we also get the question, what I want to dive into next is, so you pull up a map of the United States and where do you even start, right? There's a ton of counties out there. There's a ton of states. Where do you start? So that's another question we get a lot. And one thing I will mention is this business model works anywhere. So you can do this from any county in the United States, lower 48. You can probably do them in Hawaii and Alaska too if you really wanted. We have not done that, so I'm not going to comment on that at all. But this business model works anywhere. So follow our county selection process to ensure you're choosing the right area. But you can start near where you live. Like if you live out in Colorado, start in Colorado maybe if you're interested in it. Or maybe you live in Ohio, where we're from, and you have no interest in the land in Ohio, but I've always loved visiting North Carolina. It's awesome to me. I can't wait to look at land in North Carolina. I'm going to maybe look at some areas in North Carolina that I'm interested in because I'll get more enjoyment out of that. I would start somewhere like that instead of just pulling up a map and guessing almost. Start in an area where you live in maybe, or what you really like, or land you've seen before, or areas you love. I would probably start there, then take those counties, write down 10 of them in that area, and then go through the selection process like we teach. And then after you have 10 different counties in, say, North Carolina, then you kind of rank them 1 through 10 on what you think the best is to sell or is to send based on our process. And then you have 3 or 4 counties you can send the mail to, or whatever that may be. That's how I would get started personally if I were to start over again.
Yep. I like that a lot. I don't have much to add to that, to be honest with you, Dan. I think, like Daniel said, don't just run it on 2 counties and say both these counties are good or bad. run the test on 5, 7, 10 counties and choose the 2 or 3 best. And maybe they're all 10 like really good. What you need, there are 2 things that go into this. Where is land going to sell? So that's once you acquire, where is land going to sell well? Not necessarily in 2 days, but where is it going to sell within 30 or 60 days? And then where are people going to be willing to sell your land? That second question is really, really hard to answer. In the middle of a big city, generally, you're not going to have as much people willing to sell their land under market value. But those are the 2 questions you got to answer. And I think those are the only 2 questions you really have to answer to choose a county. Where is land going to sell, and where are there going to be sellers who are willing to sell to you under market value?
Yeah, and like Ron said, at first we did the same thing. You're probably going to be overthinking this a little bit. There's so many more variables besides the county selection, like your pricing and your negotiation skills that we talked about in the last episode. And just so many things go into it. Spend a day on it, maybe. I personally would spend an hour, maybe top. But if you're just getting started, spend a day on it. Select 10 counties in an area you like or live, and go through and then select a few counties, label them 1 to 10 on what you think's best based on our process, and then select them and just shoot the mail out. Because like Ron said earlier, we see way too many people getting caught up in this step, and I think it's unnecessary. The key is to price correctly and get the mail out. And if you're following the course, there's checks and balances to make sure that county's going to work. If you get land there, it's going to be able to sell. And if you follow that and it looks good on that, it checks out on all those boxes, send the mail. That's all I really have to say this episode.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think don't get too caught up in this. We're doing an episode on this because we see people getting caught up, and we want to give some answers and give some insights. That's why we're doing this episode. I think it's what we teach in the course and what we go over is more than enough education to do it. But we don't want you guys to get caught up in this stuff, because there is no money to be made in overthinking a county selection for 2 weeks. It's just delaying a process of getting the mail out, essentially. And if you have a bunch of counties you like, just schedule those down the road. We have one member who's really good at this. He'll find 10 counties. He'll maybe like 5 of them, and then he'll just schedule a mail out. Like, I'm mailing all 5 of these counties. I'm going to schedule one out for next Tuesday, one out for the 2 weeks from that, and then just go from there. And he'll have mail scheduled to go out for the next 2 months, where he doesn't have to do county selection. If that's your bottleneck, we've talked about bottlenecks before. If that's your bottleneck, choose 8 counties. Don't say that you can't do them. Just say you have to do it. Schedule it out, and then all you have to do is county selection every 2 months or something like that, opposed to doing it every week.
Yeah, and another thing based on what you just said that just came to mind is sometimes people, like I said, will select 10 to 20 counties, and then 8 out of 10 of them will look good from what they're saying. Don't be afraid. Don't just be like, oh, all 8 of these look good. It's not going to work in all 8, obviously. And then they get in their own heads about, too many of them looking good. If 8 of them look good out of 10 and it's checking off on the boxes with what we teach, schedule it out like Ron said. Just make sure when you're scheduling it out, price at the time you're probably sending it out, because in 2, 3, 4 months, those prices are going to change and comps are going to change. But let's wrap it up from there. I think we had some good information here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for joining. Don't forget, go visit landinvestingonline.com. Click the Start Here page. There's a free consultation if you want to speak with Ron and I for 15 minutes. If you're interested in the business model, don't know where to get started, or maybe you have some questions, ask us anything. We'll take 15 minutes out of our days. It's just one-on-one time, and we'll go over anything you have. Other than that, thanks for joining. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks, guys.